Hey, Lorna here. Are you listening to this before the 17th of April? If you are, come and join us for our 2-week Step into Spring program. If you're feeling like you want to get back in shape, start on your fitness journey, feel amazing in that bikini for summer, then come and join us now. It's a 2-week exclusive program where you get support from me, group support, an extra WhatsApp group, and you get access to a full membership. So if you're thinking of trying us out, you've been thinking for ages and ages and ages, come and do this special offer. It's only £32. £32 for 2 weeks. And if you're listening to this and you're already a member and you're thinking, oh my goodness, my best friend would love this, then do them a favor and tell them, because not only is it more fun to do it together, but that is the best gift that you could ever give, the gift of health and fitness. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you are interested, head over to lawnmariefitness.co.uk. Welcome. Say hello in the comments if you're there. We have an epic Q&A today and so many incredible questions. So I'm very much looking forward to doing this today. It's going to be brilliant. We're going to be talking all about sleep, metabolic age, Apple Watches, banking calories, animal protein versus plant protein, vegetarianism, body fat percentages, and all sorts. Are you ready for this, gang? And I hope you're enjoying being inside listening to a podcast right now or watching me live right now, as opposed to being outside in that rain, because that's horrific, isn't it? I've still got to walk Harvey on his afternoon walk yet, but I'm just waiting to see what happens. Hopefully the rain dies down a little bit. I don't know about if you have a dog or your dogs. Harvey doesn't do rain anymore. He's like too sensible for it. So I have to make him go out with me. Of course, I'm not going to force him, but I'll try and encourage. Anyway, let's get straight to the questions, because we've got a lot to get through today. So question number 1. Oh, before I begin, sorry, sidetrack. Let me show you these. Look what's arrived in the post. It's the new workout outfits. So you know how we voted in the group on what we wanted to try? So I've got this really nice pink vest top. It's like a dip dye grey t-shirt style, but it's like that workout material. It's really nice. And then I love this one. It's so cool. It's like a hybrid between a t-shirt and a jacket, but it's short sleeved. Look at that. And it's got a little tie at the bottom of it as well. Can you see that? Let me try and lift it up. There. Basically, it's really cool. So I'm going to try them out later. I'll be putting them up on the shop when it opens in April, by the way. I just like to try things out first. Okay, so very exciting. On to the questions. And don't forget today, cardio blast at 5. I will see you there. Or cardio party. Anyway, questions. Come on, Lorna. Number 1. Is it more beneficial to... Okay, let me start that again. Is more sleep better to help your body recover from exercise, or is the quality of your sleep more important? It's a really good question. And I personally believe that there needs to be a really good balance between the quantity and quality of your sleep. In terms of quantity, generally speaking, adults need between about 7 to 9 hours. Some people need a bit more, some people need a little bit less. You probably have a very good idea of what you're good on, if you like, in terms of quantity. But the quality of your sleep is really, really important. Now, when we sleep, we go through different sleep cycles. So you'll have a light sleep, and then you'll have a deeper sleep, which is called your slow wave sleep. And this is where your body really, really repairs its muscles. Then you have something called REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement sleep. So that's what your eyes are literally doing, they're moving rapidly. And that's really, really good for cognitive function. And then we have wake sleep, which is just kind of your normal disturbances that you would get through the night. You know, you're not necessarily getting up, but you're kind of coming out of those cycles. You might toss and turn or whatever. So they're the different cycles. And obviously, the longer you spend asleep or spend in bed, the more cycles you can go through and the more chance you get to give for your body to repair, both cognitively and physically. So that's why your quantity of sleep is really important, but also the quality of your sleep is super important to make sure, that you're not just having a night in light sleep, that you are going through your cycles properly and you are getting enough of those cycles too. Now, if you don't sleep enough, I'm sure we've all been there. We're irritable, we lack concentration, can't focus. Maybe you find that you're really anxious that day or you can't really think rationally. And sleep is just really important for absolutely everything. Now, in terms of if you had to choose quantity versus quality, like I said, it's about striking a balance. But researchers have said they prefer at this present moment, quality over quantity. But what you want to focus on is consistent sleep habits. So getting up, going to bed at the same time, even at the weekends if you can, or not having such a big difference between the weekday and weekends, because what you're essentially doing is pretty much putting yourself in a different time zone every weekend. So that can really mess with your sleep. Just having really good sleep hygiene, so proper wind down routine, turn the screens off, not eating just before you go to bed, but also not going to bed starving. And just getting into good routines, consistent habits, so that you can get good quality sleep. And ideally, getting enough sleep as well, so quantity. I hope that answers the question. Great question though. Okay, second one. How is the metabolic age worked out? I recently had a health scan through my employer, and while I got greens for nutrition, exercise, good muscle density, lifestyle, no smoking, and very low units in alcohol, my metabolic age was 11 years older than my actual age. So in terms of measuring your metabolic age, what they do is they measure your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. So that is your... it's basically the amount of energy that your body is burning at as a base, so without putting any exercise into the measure. So that is what your metabolic rate is based on, your basal metabolic rate, your metabolic rate when you are just living, you're just being, basically. And the way that they measure your metabolic age is comparing your BMR, so your basal metabolic rate, with the kind of norm of your age or the average or whatever. It depends on what measure they use to measure your BMR, your metabolic age. But generally it's down to body composition and it's down to your muscle mass as well. So your body composition in terms of your muscle to fat ratio. And how much you deviate from the normative values. So how much lean body mass do you have relative to your body weight, relative to the rest of your body mass in terms of, compared with everybody else. Now it's only ever an estimate and it's never definitive of how healthy you are as a person. It can be used as a measure, as with all things, but it's not going to define whether you are healthy or not healthy. So I wouldn't get too hung up on it. And depending on, what measures they used to measure your BMR to, it might not be very accurate, and things can affect the accuracy, like where you are with your menstrual cycle, where you are with stress, where you are with your hydration. So that can have an effect. And I think really the bottom line here is you need to be focusing on the controllables, things within your control. If you want to improve your metabolic age, essentially you want to be doing more strength training, making sure you're eating enough protein, making sure you're hydrated, you're sleeping really well, and you're keeping your stress levels low, so you're managing your stress really well. They will all contribute to improving your lean muscle mass, which will in turn, improve your scores on those metabolic age tests. But the best thing you can do is just make sure you're doing everything in your power to look after yourself the best you can, and don't get hung up on these measurements because they're not definitive. And ultimately, if you're leading a healthy lifestyle or not and doing everything you can for you. So as long as you're focusing on those things and, you're doing your best at those things, you can't go wrong. So I wouldn't get too worried about it. But if it is something that is concerning you, maybe it's worth going to speak to your GP or a medical professional about it. You can always get another one done too, or they might even use a different measure that might come out completely different. You don't know. It's all based on like equations and algorithms and things like that too. So yeah, don't worry. And I know that you're doing lots to look after yourself, and you have since you've been with us. So yeah, well done. Just keep up what you're doing. Okay, next one. So my son and myself both have Apple Watches. When we do the same exercise class together, he burns almost double the amount of calories than me. I know it sounds a silly question. He's 22 and I'm 54, but I'd love to have it properly explained to me. So the first thing I want to say with watches is the accuracy is appalling. It really, really is. It can depend on the type of device you're using. It can depend on where you've got it on your body. It can depend on the fit. So for example, when I had a Polar watch, it didn't fit on my wrist properly. So quite often if I would be doing a HIIT workout and really, really, really pushing it, it would tell me that I was pretty much in a green zone and doing absolutely nothing. And it depends on where you have it on your body. Like typically fitness trackers that you wear closer to your heart, so you wrap kind of almost around your rib cage or your bra line, they're more accurate than wearing them on your wrist. But the technology is getting better. It's getting better, but it's not there yet. Now, the reason, aside from the inaccuracies and, where you might be holding it on your wrist and whether your watch fits you as well as it does your son, there are other things at play here. One is the fact that, is your son taller than you? Is he bigger than you? Does he weigh more than you? Because if he does, he is going to be burning more calories during a workout and even at rest. So that is something to take in consideration. That's number one. Number two, he is male, you're female. Generally speaking, males not only tend to be bigger, they also have more lean muscle mass than ladies in general. This is generally speaking. Guys tend to have more muscle, so a higher muscle to fat percentage than ladies do. So therefore, they are burning more calories during a workout and at rest due to the fact that they've got more muscle, hence higher, faster metabolism. So that's another reason. Alongside with that, body composition, muscle to fat ratio, women tend to have higher fat to muscle ratios because we're protecting vital organs that need to be protected in our body. So that, body composition is one. Another one can be the amount of effort that's been put in, the intensity level. Another one can be fitness level. But actually, that kind of works the other way around. So say if maybe you are so much fitter than your son, therefore your body has adapted already really well to exercise. Basically, the fitter you get, the more your body is able to adapt to exercise, and it's not going to burn as many calories. It's kind of, in a really crude way of saying it, it's kind of used to doing that sort of thing. It doesn't mean it's not worthwhile anymore, you're not getting anything out of it. It just means that your body has made the adaptations to make that slightly more efficient. So you might burn less calories in that way. So if you're a lot fitter than your son, or with your son being younger, I shouldn't have made the presumption before, but you tend to think that 20-year-olds are super, super fit. If with your son being younger, that would be counteractive to what I just said. But anyway, if he was fitter, then he'd be more efficient then for burning less calories. But obviously that's not the case here. So moving on, but you get what I'm trying to say here. Age is a factor. So not only do, say, people in their 20s and their teens tend to bounce back a lot faster and tend to be fitter, and that's just sometimes because they've got more time because they're out and about, whereas when you hit your 30s, 40s, 50s, you might be a little bit more sedentary at work or in whatever you're doing. But it's about the muscle. So the muscle mass, after 30 or when you hit 30, your muscle mass actually decreases by about 3 to 5% every decade, unless you're doing anything to kind of prevent that from happening. So unless you're eating adequate protein and you're causing muscle stimulus, the breakdown, the repair of muscles through strength training. So that is a factor as well. But what I would say overall is just don't compare. Don't compare yourself to your son or anybody else, because there's so many factors going into it. so many that it is very hard to compare. But they're just a few things. But you're on your own fitness journey, so don't worry about anyone else. You just keep doing what you're doing. Right, moving on. So, this is a really good question as well. How best to manage social events when you're trying to be good? Do you suggest trying to bank calories? Now, if you don't know what banking calories is, it's basically saving them, like putting them in the bank and then using them kind of when you need them, essentially. Now, there's a lot of problems with this. And a lot of people try and do this, and it is what causes them to end up in this awful on-off or binge restrict cycle. So a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to go out this weekend. I know that I'm going out Friday, Saturday, maybe have some drinks on Sunday. So throughout this week, I'm going to cut my calories down to whatever it might be. I'm going to save like 600 or 700 every day. So when I get to the weekend, I'll have all this left. And do you know what actually happens? It makes your week completely and utterly miserable because you're fatigued, you're irritable. It's really, really difficult to resist as well, because all you'll be thinking of is the weekend. And then by the time you get to the weekend, you feel so fed up, maybe really quite hungry, maybe really tired, that all you want to do is just go for it on the food front. And you know what? You might go overboard as well. You might go way over your calorie allowance. So it encourages this binge restrict cycle, because then you might go overboard at the weekend and think on Monday, oh my goodness, right, back to the diet. And then it just makes your Monday to Friday completely and utterly miserable again. And it doesn't have to be like this. So that is one thing that I would be concerned about. And it's quite a poor way to think of food as well. It encourages like a poor relationship with food, because the reason we want to be feeding ourselves is to nourish our bodies. And also, if you are on a weight loss journey, or if you're a really active person, you want to be quite conscious of preserving your muscle mass. So if you are restricting your calories during the week, are you getting enough protein in? And it depends, of course, like to what extent you're doing that. But I think what is really important is thinking about your relationship with your food and with your diet. For some people, there might not be a big problem in saving 100 to 200 calories a day, which, by the way, isn't that much. A couple of bananas or whatever. That might be okay for them to leave a little bit of wriggle room at the weekend and not go overboard, but maybe, think, oh, do you know what? I'm going to have that dinner that's higher in calories because I saved, 100 a day throughout the week. Again, it's not a right lot. But if you want to do it that way and give yourself a bit of wriggle room, fine, as long as that's not going to cause you to, have a bit of a head fudge. I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I mean. I think it's all about, at the end of the day, nourishing your body and being really, really observant with the way you think about your food and the way that you think about, nourishing and just being kind to your body and find that balance. And knowing that if you are on a weight loss journey, it doesn't have to be horrendous. It can actually be enjoyable. I hope that answers the question. It's a great one though. Okay, next question. What would you recommend diet-wise, exercise-wise for someone who's perimenopausal that always carries weight around the middle? Okay, so the reason we carry weight around the middle when we are perimenopausal, menopausal, is due to a dip in estrogen. It affects where we hold fat and store fat in the body. So typically, for ladies ladies in general have like a pear shape, more of a pear shape. So we tend to hold the fat on our thighs and our bottom more. Or you may have the hourglass. Lucky you. But when we hit the perimenopause, it tends to go into more of an apple shape, and you hold your fat stores around your abdomen, your tummy. And it's just what happens. It's just where the body prefers to hold our fat stores. Now, what can we do about that? Now, a lot of people think that they need to be doing sit-ups, more and more sit-ups, and that's going to help me get a slim stomach. Well, no, not really, not entirely. So what you want to be doing is core work, number one, so that you have the muscle and the muscle mass and the strength there. So when you do lose the fat and the body weight, then you can see, you know, that nice shape. So that's why you want to do core exercises. But essentially, if you wanted to reduce, you know, the fat around the middle, it would be about putting yourself in a calorie deficit. And you can't, unfortunately, choose exactly where you want the weight or the fat to come off. That's not a thing. We can't, it's called fat spot reducing. You can't do that. But what you can do is you can make sure you're working on those areas to shape and tone. And then when you lose the fat, you're going to have that muscular tone there. So, yeah, you want to be doing core exercises. You want to be also working strength. Because, you know, like I said earlier, when, you know, after 30, we do lose muscle mass by about 3 to 5% every decade. Well, when you hit the perimenopause, it accelerates at quite a fast rate. So you need to be making sure you're doing everything in your power to maintain as much muscle mass as possible, to not only keep the lean shape and keep your metabolism high, because obviously more muscle mass, higher your metabolism, and the more lovely food you can eat now. Just kidding. You can eat whatever you want, within reason. But also, by having that muscle mass there, it's going to protect your bones. And also doing strength training protects your bones, protects your bone density. So you need to be doing strength training. You need to be doing that core training. And you also need to be prioritizing protein in your diet. You may be cutting down on some of the processed foods and keeping a bit of a food diary to track how you feel. What a lot of women find during this period is not just the fact they're holding fat stores there, but they're getting bloating, which makes it feel and maybe look worse to them. You know, at the end of the day, it is all about how you feel in yourself, isn't it? And if you do feel really bloated, it could be because you're not tolerating foods in quite the same way as you used to. And also, due to all the hormonal fluctuations, your food can actually move slower through the digestive tract and actually start breaking down and fermenting within the digestive tract, which is when you get that gas and that bloating. So it's about finding the foods that, you know, are going to be easier to digest for you, that sit with you well. And you're only going to know that through tracking and writing down what you've had, see how you feel straight after it, maybe the next day, and being really, really mindful, and also slowing down when you eat. So that's if you find that you've got bloating as well as that, which, you know, sometimes it can be. Sometimes it might not be holding fat. You might just be feeling really, really bloated. It could be either or. So I hope that helps. So strength training, core training, prioritizing protein, and keeping track of how you're feeling when you're eating certain foods. And just think about balance, you know, having a balance with your exercise, with your diet, and also bonus point, managing your stress. Definitely. Stress management is a big one, particularly at this time as well. Okay, moving on. I would love to know a bit more about incorporating the amount of protein I need into my day, especially considering recommended size of daily portions, which for me seem very small. Also to understand more about the difference between the absorption of animal protein versus plant protein. Okay, so if we strip it back to the basics and think about protein. If you are on a fat loss journey, if you are a very active person, or if you are perimenopausal or menopausal, you need to really be making sure you've got enough protein in your diet, and you need to be thinking about upping the amount of protein in your diet. You want to take your body weight in kilograms. So how much, first of all? Take your body weight in kilograms, times it by 1.5 to 2. So for somebody who weighs 60 kilograms, they would want to aim for between 90 and 120 grams of protein per day. So I've just taken that weight, I've times it by 1.5 to 2 and called it grams. Okay, so do that now for you. How much should you be having in a day at the moment? Now, the reason we do this, so if you're on a fat loss journey, it keeps you satiated, so it keeps you fuller for longer, but also helps you maintain that muscle mass. So when you're losing weight, we want to be losing the fat and want to be holding on to the muscle mass so that you have that nice, toned, lean look. If you are an active person, we want to preserve our muscle, we don't want to be losing it, and we also need it to help our bodies repair, repair, let's help ourselves here. And then I've just spoken about the perimenopause, menopause. We want to be maintaining and negating that muscle mass loss the best we possibly can. And also that is going to in turn help to keep your metabolism high, because the more muscle mass we have, the higher your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, the higher your metabolism. Now, your body peaks at absorbing about 20 to 30 grams of protein in one sitting. It depends on a lot of things. It will depend on, how big you are. It could depend on your gender. It could depend on genetics, so many things. But it's roughly about 20 to 30 grams in a sitting. So it's no good thinking, okay, I need to eat 100 grams of protein. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to have, 4 chicken breasts or something. It's not going to work like that. You can only absorb 25%. If you eat more than you need, well, you're just going to pee it out, basically. So you want to make sure you're spreading it out evenly throughout the day. So that might be, okay, at breakfast, I'm going to make sure I have 20 grams of protein. Then at lunch and dinner, I'm going to go 30, and then I'm going to have a couple of snacks in between that are high protein as well. So that's how I do it personally, and that's how I would do it as well. So to get more protein into your diet, number one, base every meal you have around a protein source. It might be eggs, it might be fish, it might be lentils, it might be beans, it might be meats. Whatever it is, base your meal around a protein source. Then have some protein-rich snacks in that you can have. That might be Greek yogurt, it might be cottage cheese, it might be a protein bar. Some people even like to snack on, bits of, cooked chicken or whatever. Whatever you want, have some protein-rich snacks in. Then in terms of portion sizes, think about how much protein you want to get out of that. I'm not saying, you need to sit and eat a whole chicken or anything like that. Just think about, okay, I want to make sure that I'm getting about 30 grams of protein in my lunch. Then work out what you need from it. Or if you're not sure and you don't want to start weighing things out, just make sure you're basing each meal around a protein source, and you can't really go far wrong, to be honest. And then if you feel like you're struggling to get enough protein into your diet, you can think about supplementing it too. You can think about protein powders, protein bars. There's all sorts of proteiny things now that are really nice, like protein muffins or whatever you want to have. It can be really quite easy to get enough protein into your diet. And what I would say is, if you are increasing your protein, just make sure you're also increasing your water to help digest as well, and maybe increase it bit by bit. You don't want to go from 45 grams to 145 within the space of a week or a day. Just be sensible with it and let your body get used to it too. In terms of the animal versus plant protein, so our body prefers animal protein in terms of its digestibility. It's really readily absorbed. Now with plant protein, it's harder for the body to absorb. It's basically surrounded by a cell wall that our body has to break down. So your body has to do a bit of work to get into that protein. It's not as easily digested, and it's also not as easily absorbed. So you might find that, say if you have a chicken breast, you're pretty much getting all the protein from that into your body, absorbed into your body. Whereas if you're having some plant-based protein, you may actually need to eat more than you think to actually get the protein into your body. So if it says you got 20 grams of protein in a XYZ serving, your body probably isn't going to absorb all of that protein if it's plant protein. Soy being an exception, actually. One other thing you need to think about if you are going plant-based is the amino acid profile. So plant proteins the majority don't contain all 9 essential amino acids. So protein, if you break it down, it breaks down into amino acids, which is what our body absorbs. Your body can't make all the amino acids on its own. In fact, there are 9 that it can't make, that it has to get from its food. Animal proteins contain that. So when you eat, say, some chicken or some beef, it contains the 9 essential amino acids that your body needs. Whereas when you have plant protein, soy being an exception again, it doesn't. So you need to think about getting your plant proteins from different sources and just being really mindful about that as well to make sure you're getting that complete amino acid profile. You've got quinoa, which is another complete one. So some animal proteins are complete proteins. So it might just be worth a little Google. If you are a vegetarian or you are a vegan, have a little Google and see what plant protein sources are complete. Like I've already said, I've given you a couple there already, like soy, quinoa, straight away. And we're going to talk about more animal-based proteins later as well. But yeah, I saw a statistic earlier and it said something about you may actually need to eat 20 to 50% more plant-based proteins to get, the same amount of protein as you would with animal. But it depends on what you enjoy, and that's not to say that you shouldn't have plant protein as well and you shouldn't use that as your main source. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just laying out the facts that the body finds it easier to absorb, and it contains all, the complete amino acid profile, your essential amino acids. I hope that's giving you a little bit of food for thought, and I hope that's useful too. Next question. How do you manage motivation when you don't really get the post-exercise buzz and you're feeling a bit unfit and uncoordinated? Now, I would say here, just really don't be harsh on yourself. You have to take it step by step. You're not going to start a fitness program, be like, oh my goodness, I've started and I've fallen in love with exercise. This is the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, you might, but I really do think that you've got to take it step by step. Start off small and do lots of variety, see what you enjoy doing. So try loads of different things. And that's the beauty with what we do as well, because we've got a little bit of everything, a little bit of all sorts. So try different things, see what takes your fancy, have loads of patience with your body. No, it's not an overnight fix. And, reward yourself on the way in terms of actually thinking about what good you've done. Like, give yourself a pat on the back. Be proud of your achievements. And I would say, if you really want to get the most out of what we do, throw yourself into it. Get involved. Try different things. Come to lives when you can. Get involved in the group chat. And the more you throw yourself into it, the more you're going to get out of it, and the more you'll pick up that buzz and that motivation and that enjoyment for it. Now, there will become a time when, you've been doing this for a while, you're getting fitter, you're feeling the benefits from it, and that buzz will come because you're feeling so good for doing it. But, we're only at the very, very start right now. Day 5 today. So just take it step by step, have that patience with yourself. And one thing I find really helps is, so say sometimes with like my running training, there might be days where I just couldn't think of anything worse than going out for a 3-hour run to train for a marathon. And do you know what I think? I reflect on how I'm feeling when I'm out there and I'm out in the fresh air and I'm enjoying it and I'm listening to my podcast or I'm listening to good music and I'm feeling good for moving my body. And afterwards, I have a little moment and just stop and think about, how proud I am that I did that. And I know that's completely different, but in terms of the classes, like if you're trying something new for the first time, do it and just take a moment afterwards to see, how do I feel right now? Well, chances are you probably feel really energized and you probably think that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And also you should feel proud of yourself for doing something new and that was out of your comfort zone. So give yourself a little pat on the back and work with yourself rather than against yourself. Okay, when doing a hamstring stretch, why is holding the back of the knee a bad thing? Okay, so when you hold a hamstring stretch, I always say hold behind the back of the thigh or the calf, just avoid that soft bit of skin behind the knee. Now, this is because we don't want to be putting any excess pressure on the knee joint. So if you think about the hamstrings. So the hamstrings, they flex your knee, i.e. bend your knee, bring your heel towards your bottom, and they also extend your hips, as in, imagine you're pushing your hips forward. Okay, that's what they do. And when we do a hamstring stretch, the goal is to lengthen the hamstrings. It is not to be pulling on the knee joint. So in that area, you've got a lot of ligaments, you've got a lot of tendons, you've got a joint capsule there, which is basically the membrane surrounding the joint. We don't really want to be pulling or on that area. that could lead to inflammation. It could cause injury. We just don't want to be pulling on that knee joint. So it's just better to hold elsewhere and think about the purpose of the exercise, which is lengthening of the hamstring rather than pulling on the ligaments, tendons, and the joint capsule of the knee, which, like I said, could cause inflammation, could just feel a bit nasty, or it could cause injury. If you're holding that for a long time and you're pulling on that, it's not going to feel great. Okay, next question. I'm not convinced my cheapo scales accurately measure body fat, visceral fat, fat-free muscle, etc., and suspect those numbers are just a factor of body weight. Do you have any advice for more accurate scales? Thanks. In terms of measuring your body fat percentage, bathroom scales, probably not the one. They're not the most accurate. The most accurate way to measure your body fat percentage is a DEXA scan, although these can be really quite expensive. They use an X-ray, which basically tells you your body fat percentage and your muscle mass, your bone density, all sorts. That is the best way to measure your body fat percentage. There are other ways too. A low cost, not so accurate, but okay measure is using calipers. And you use them yourself, and it's basically on your skin folds, and then you measure your skin folds and then you put it into a formula. But it's not massively accurate, and of course it depends on how you're measuring yourself too. It could be human error in there. There's also hydrostatic weighing. I didn't even know this existed until today, but it basically measures your body density inside and outside water. And that is also quite accurate, but again, also expensive. And with both the DEXA and the hydrostatic one, I think I said that right, hydrostatic weighing, you need to actually go to a medical professional to go and get that procedure done. So the other one is your BIA scales, which I'm presuming these are similar to what you've got, Murray, or maybe it's what you've got. Now, the thing is with these scales, yes, we can buy them ourselves, and essentially it puts an electric current through your body and tests the resistance of your body's tissues. They're not as accurate as the other measures, but they might be more accurate than calipers, mind you. But they can be affected by quite a few things. And it depends on the type of scale you bought as well. Is it a 2-point? Is it a 4-point scale? And it depends on your hydration status. So if you're dehydrated, it can say that your body fat is higher. It depends on if you've had caffeine or alcohol. It depends on if you are weighing yourself, post-workout. So there's quite a few things to take into consideration. I think the main thing though is just making sure that you're doing everything you can for your health in terms of your nutrition and your exercise. You're eating a balanced diet, you're managing your stress, you're sleeping with good quality and quantity, you're staying hydrated in yourself, and your body weight's within a healthy BMI. And I think if you're ticking off all those things, you can't go too far wrong. But I hope that gives you a few ideas. And I'm sorry I don't have the perfect scale. I'm sure it will probably come in time, but just kind of like the watches, I don't think the technology, in terms of household technology, is quite there yet. But great question, really great question. Okay, do you think taking joint supplements like cod liver oil and glucosamine are worthwhile? This is a really debated topic. Some people say they're really, really useful. Some people say they don't provide any great results. Now, they're considered safe to take, but if you're not sure or you're concerned, I would always speak to your GP first, just to make sure you've got the A-OK and everything to take them. They're meant to be anti-inflammatories, basically, for your joints. Again, there's no harm in taking them if you're not really sure, but I wouldn't substitute it for diet and exercise. So just making sure you're getting enough calcium, vitamin D into your diet, enough omega-3s into your diet through eating things like fish, and making sure that you're doing strength training and just looking after your joints, mobilizing your joints in yoga, Pilates, all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a debatable one, that one. There's no real hard answer for that. Okay, next question. If you're not hungry at the end of the day and you still have plenty of calories left over and you've not hit your protein, should you eat for the sake of it to get your protein in? Like this evening, I planned in a protein pudding for after dinner as a sweet treat, but I'm not really hungry. This really depends. It depends, are you on a weight loss journey or are you not? So say if you know that you've had an extremely active day and you've not eaten a right lot and you've got calories left at the end of the day, you're not on a weight loss journey, but you've not had enough protein and you've had a really active day, I would say, yes, have something with some protein in, have something to eat to make sure that you're hitting your protein targets, like we were talking about preserving muscle mass and recovery for our muscles. If you are on a weight loss journey, you're really not feeling hungry at all, then, is there any point in trying to force yourself to eat something? In general, I would say the best thing you can do is listen to your body. If you're really hungry, have something to eat. If you are not, then don't. But in terms of protein, I would try and plan it better. So make sure if you know you're going to get to that time of day, you're going to be eating late, you need to space your protein throughout the day. Make sure you've hit your protein targets. So get your protein targets in there. And that's the same as well if you're a really active person, or we're talking about perimenopause earlier, just make sure you've hit your protein targets. And if you're concerned about it, maybe just have something that's, pretty light but high in protein. Like you could have a bit of, protein pudding, you could have some Greek yogurt, but it really, really depends. Like the body is generally quite good at telling you what it wants and what it needs as well. So it just depends. Depends on your goals. Depends on what you've been doing. It's not a yes or no. It's really difficult. But yeah, that's what I would do. I would make sure that I'd hit my protein, but maybe just plan it out better in the day. Okay. Oh my gosh. Right, nearly at the end. I'm a veggie. Couple of questions. I'm a veggie with fish sometimes, and mostly pescatarian. Yeah, and mostly take homemade soup and a whole wheat roll, no filling, and butter for my lunch. One day an omelette. What else can I take for lunch that's protein based? I'm thinking I'm not eating enough protein. Okay, are you ready for some veggie alternatives for protein? There are so many, but here's a little list. So you've got tofu or tempeh to put in salads, sandwiches. Lentils, chickpeas, again for salads, or you could make it into a hummus. Quinoa for stir fries, salads. They're great. Nut butters probably is like a bit of a snack or a dip. Just careful on the portion size with that one. Different types of cheeses, so maybe like cottage cheese, Greek yogurts, edamame beans. And in terms of some snacks, you could even snack on boiled egg, protein bars, shakes, all that kind of thing. So hopefully that's given you loads of lunch ideas. And also have a look at the nutrition area, our recipe books. We've got a plant-based one. It's got some really good, nice, high protein recipes in it too. And also feel free to share on the group as well if you've got any that you like or your go-tos. That would be great. That'd be great to hear and see. And the last question. So I already do yoga and Pilates each week. Can these be logged, or is it just your classes? So in terms of, can they be logged on your achievements area? No, because that is, that the system logs whether you've done an on-demand class or a live class with us at Lorna's Online Squad. So in terms of your achievements, it can't go towards your achievements. But in terms of if you are trying to hit, say, 4 workouts a week and you're doing a yoga and Pilates, yeah, absolutely. What I would say is if you're doing, say, a yoga once and a Pilates once during the week, make sure then you're accompanying it with a strength workout and a cardio workout with us, so it complements what you're doing outside us. Because that's what you'd be lacking with there. You'd be lacking on anything real properly strength based and anything that's going to work your heart. or work your heart harder, your cardio fitness. So I would just say that. But in terms of like, yeah, if you're aiming for a certain number of classes a week, why not? Yeah. Well, team, I hope this has been really useful. Please let me know if you've enjoyed it. Put hashtag replay if you're watching it on replay. And yeah, I can't believe how long we've been chatting for, but I hope this has been extremely useful for you, and have a wonderful Friday. I'll see you all soon.